Just another kind of sidebar on the whole nutrient management, weeds, etc. In soybeans, particularly. Here's kind of my idea of how it works. It's kind of like another anthropomorphism, but when soybeans get bigger, they start, producing a lot of nitrogen. Okay. The other important aspect is legumes themselves are not very good at creating soil aggregation. You have lots of compaction issues with monocrops of legumes. And yet they are, require air in the soil to achieve, optimal, getting super high levels of nitrogen creation. So here we are in organic farming. The conventional way of organic farming, I guess, is farming organic with a conventional mindset of, which is, kill, we'll kill our way out of problems. And so you can keep these fields of soybeans incredibly clean if you have the right tool at the right time. Increasingly, we're getting better at it. But the reality is a lot of organic farms struggle with weeds in soybeans, especially late in the season. And here's why. The reason is soybeans are not themselves able to create ideal soil conditions for themselves. They, like I was saying, need air in the soil. They want the soil to be decompacted by a plant that's much better at that. So here we're trying to provide that with the mustard. And that's just one of its many great features. But so the scenario is you've kept your soybeans nice and clean. You do a last cultivation pass in July. It's canopying. This is what I used to think. It was like, oh great, I got it in the bag when I first started out. And the reality is a couple weeks later, you'd start seeing weeds growing through the canopy, and then a lot more weeds, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And by the time harvest rolled around, frost killed it. You had huge weeds in a field where you thought it was pretty clean. And you have to think, the way I think about it, you don't have to think this way, is it's kind of like an economic system almost. I know nothing about economics, so this is probably messed up. But when your beans get big, it's out in the field, doesn't have someone to decompact the soil. It has a ton of nitrogen, and it's this dominant plant. It's created a whole bunch of nitrogen. It's essentially has this currency for growing other plants that it's just created out of thin air. It's the federal government. It printed a whole bunch of money, and it needs this big public works operation done decompacting the soil after this guy sits on it. And so there's all this money, the federal government, your soybean plants have all this nitrogen, just ready to throw it around, and all these bacteria, hear about it through the Mycelium News Network, and they're like, we got this, it's usually foxtail, wow, we were just waiting for this opportunity. We have this foxtail seed. We're ready to fire it up. Let's go, boys. Let's fire it up. Foxtail loves nitrogen, loves these low gas prices, and it does, you know, I don't know if it does a great job taking out compaction, but it definitely likes, you know, the high nitrogen environment. And so essentially you're getting weeds that are responding to the needs of your crop that you've created a monoculture of. And that's why in organics it's so common you have this problem with you know, especially plants that are trying to decompact the soil and lap up all that nitrogen. And in, you know, and there's all these hungry bacteria, biology, you know, they look at that economic situation of the federal government throwing around all that money, and they're thinking, if we fire up this weed seed, we got sugars for generational wealth. Like their grandchildren's children's children got sugar, you know, after they fire up the foxtail plant. Like they're making massive amounts of money. So you're really working against yourself with this whole keep the field clean. And I know we're getting really good at it, but I think organic farming kind of hits a ceiling a little bit. It's definitely better than chemical farming. Not going to talk about that now, but I think with just all the tillage and monocultures, we are setting up imbalances in the soil that we just fight against. And if you're an organic farmer, you know it is a battle to keep especially beans clean. So anyway, we'll see if this is a massive failure or not, but yeah, this is step one of, you know, I think there are other things to add to these mixes, plants that might work even better, but you know, I think the Phacelia, that'll be interesting to see how that works. Definitely I'm going to be adding mustard, at least a few pounds, into the buckwheat inner seed that goes into the corn. I think help fill in the gaps a little bit. All right.